If someone missed the video in first parts, then a hint has been made for you in the upper right corner. Kageyama Shigeo is still looking for a way to get closer to Tsubomi-chan. In the meantime, love seems to him only a fantasy. A farmer turned to Reigen and Mob's detective agency, as the crop has been disappearing on the farm for several years in a row, and he needs to solve this problem. There, Mob encounters a higher-level spirit, Twirl Spin, who first appears in the form of a scarecrow, and then shows his true form. Further, the spirit takes Reigen hostage, and Mob is dragged underground. The Mob realized that the spirit controls the plants through signals, so it sends an amplified signal with a message to the plants and breaks their connection with the spirit. However, the enraged spirit reappears, but Mob banishes him by destroying his skull. For this work, Mob received payment in the form of broccoli seeds. Next, we are shown the 12th official meeting of the Psycho Helmet cult, of which Mob is the head. However, he does not know about this, since it was all invented by Mizata, who wants to make Mob a star so that he can lead the masses. Then Shinji announces his resignation from the post of president of the study council, and therefore the election of a person for his position will soon be held. Mizata's mind immediately comes up with the idea of making Mob the president of the study council. Next, Mizata notices Mob at the moment when he is dreaming about Tsubomi-chan. Mizata says that she never thought Mob could fall in love with a school idol. However, Mob tells her that he and Tsubomi-chan have been friends since childhood. And Mizata, in turn, offers Mobu to become the president of the study council, as this will allow him to become on the same level as Tsubomi-chan. And from that moment on, Mob's hardest training begins. A week later, presidential elections begin. There are 4 candidates in total. The first is Marashiji Kyuki from Class 2. The second is Amura Shinji, who was persuaded to run again by Vice President Akugawa. For Shinji, this is an opportunity to make things right, and make things right. The last participant was Kageyama Shigeo. However, he did not utter a single word during his speech. It turns out that Mob has stage fright. Mob, after his silent performance, finds a letter from the girl Amy, who on the rooftop invited Mob to meet with her. After that, he and Amy go for a walk. There, Mob lied that he worked part-time in a bookstore, which made Amy very happy, since she is now writing a novel. At that moment, Mob thought that if he told Amy about his work as an exorcist, then Amy would immediately get scared and leave. Next, Mob at work exorcises several spirits. Reigen noticed that Mob was acting a little strange and joked that maybe Mob had a girlfriend, causing Mob to leave quickly. A week goes by and Amy gives Mob her novel to read. After asking why Mob refused to meet with her then on the roof, and then she told that then she put the letter in the locker for fun, as she lost the game of desire. After that, she says thanks to Mob for walking with her for a whole week, because if this were not the case, she would become a laughingstock in the eyes of her friends. And at the end, she apologized for lying for a whole week. On the way home, Amy meets her girlfriends, who bully her and break up her romance. However, Mob appears and stops them and says that it is very cruel to tear up the novel that Amy has worked so hard on. After that, he collects scraps of the novel and says that now he will devote more time to his emotions. At this moment, the wind rises, which carries away all the fragments of the novel. However, Mob connects all the pieces with his power and restores the romance, which greatly surprises Imai and Tsubomi-chan, who was watching all this. At home, Mob tells all this to Dimples, who promises to be Mob's love advisor. And Amy, seeing Mob's power, decides to write a new story called A High School Student with Supernatural Powers. She also thinks Mob is very cool. The next day, due to the lack of clients, Reigen came up with a way to make money via the internet. They will look for information about urban stories and legends. And due to the fact that many people believe in these stories and legends, they will be able to make good money on this. They place their advertisement on the street where they meet Shinro Bamshamaru, who calls himself the greatest psychic of this century. He says that he controls everything here and is a member of the spiritual union of the rising sun. In response, Reigen suggested that Shinro introduce Reigen to the members of this alliance as they are potential clients. However, Shinro refused. Their first client shows up and reveals that she constantly feels a terrible aura behind her. She thinks that all this is because of urban legends, Valakushi, and other monsters. She asks to help her and destroy these city monsters. Shinro immediately refuses, and Reigen takes out his price list and takes on the case. After Reigen gives Shinro a business card and says that if they unite, then the process of finding legends will speed up by half. Shinro agrees to this and goes on a quest in the same way. Reigen then asks Dimples to look after Shinro, as if he actually meets the monster, his life will be in danger. It turns out that they were being followed all the time by the pervert Akirain, who was spotted by Shinro and started chasing him. Akirain led Shinro into the forest and then electrocuted him. Suddenly it starts to rain and Volocusha appears. She disconnects Akirain and drags him into the water. However, Shinro intervenes and throws his beads at her, but it doesn't help. She grabs Shinro and starts drowning him as well. Dimples appears, possesses Shinro, and begins to fight Volocusha. Meanwhile, Mob and Reigen find a local legend, a dog with a human face. Reigen launders her, and after that they receive a call from Dimple, who reports that he has found Volocusha. Dimples tries to play for time and save Shinro's body. At this time, Reigen appears and Mob throws back Volocusha. After Volocusha, he takes on a giant form and knocks Reigen and Shinro back. However, Mob banishes her with his power. Shinro thanks Reigen and Mob for saving him, and Akirain is taken to the police. Then Reigen creates his own website in order to increase the flow of customers to himself. This site is getting very popular. Next, Reigen and Mob go on a mission to a girl who sees a human silhouette outside her window every day. It turns out that this is her psychic neighbor who is in love with her. The neighbor starts to get angry because he was interrupted. He uses his power, but Reigen twists him, and the neighbor is taken away by the police. On the way, Reigen meets bloggers who need help in the same place with the spirits where they are going to arrange a photo shoot. Reigen, Mob, and the bloggers arrive at the abandoned house and start taking pictures. However, bloggers refuse to pay, as they did not need the help of a psychic, and they simply leave. The next day, the same bloggers come to Reigen. They found a spirit in their photographs, and they ask that Reigen and Mob return to this house and destroy this spirit and promise to pay a lot of money for this. Bloggers, along with Mob and Reigen, come to the abandoned place. There, Mob finds 3 spirits who say that they died in this house and they will not harm anyone. This is a family that wants to stay longer with each other and then just disappear. But bloggers insist that Mob expel them. However, Mob refuses. Dimples intervenes and tries to anger the father's spirit. However, the spirit kneels down and asks that if they are driven out, then all at once together. Reigen decides to correct the tense state. He throws salt at the bloggers and announces that the exile process is over. Afterwards, Reigen understands Mob's feelings and offers to treat him to soba. Mob's breakdown scale is 67%. Reigen receives a letter with a task for a very large amount of money. They go to a client who lives in a mansion. There they meet a bunch of psychics, as well as the head of the Rising Sun, Shoto Kirin, who introduces Reigen and says that he is the one who defeated Volocusha. Next, the owner of the estate, Asajiri Masashi, appears. He gathered all these psychics in order for them to save his 14-year-old daughter, Asajiri Minori. Masashi promises a giant reward to whoever saves Minori. To understand who will be the first to expel, Masashi invites everyone to play rock, paper, scissors, where Reigen wins. After Reigen enters the room and starts talking to Minori, Minori tries to confuse everyone and starts saying that her father has gone crazy. The crowd of psychics begins to believe her words, but Reigen reasoned with everyone and said that when he talked to Minori, he did not introduce himself as who he was. However, Minori called him a psychic. Reigen is sure that she is under the complete control of the spirit. Next, Minori is approached by Udon, one of Shoto's subordinates. However, a minute later, Udon flies out through a tinted window and calls Minori a monster. Masashi asks to save his daughter, for which he promises an unrealistic amount of money. And Dimples, in a trembling voice, says that Minori was possessed by the spirit of the former strongest psychic Mogami Kiji, who once banished Dimples. But instead of expelling Mogami, he tried to absorb Dimples in order to turn into an evil spirit himself. After Mogami breaks the chains and moves into Shoto. However, Reigen frees Shoto with a punch to the stomach. Mogami then grabs Reigen and stabs Minori's father. Reigen asks Mob to intervene, as Mogami has started to run amok. The mob grabs the captured Minori, but the spirit begins to break the bones in the girl's body. Mob's breakdown scale is 91%. After Mob uses his power, however, Mogami is stronger. Then Mob decides to penetrate Minori's body in order to destroy the spirit from the inside, and Mob leaves his body under the supervision of Dimples. Mob comes out of his body, and at the same moment, Mogami attacks Mob's body. However, Dimples takes over his body and protects him. Meanwhile, Moba's spirit takes over Minori's body. In the girl's mind, Mob asks Mogami to leave the body alone. However, it turns out that Mob has been trapped by a spirit. Mogami throws Mob and then erases his memory of his strength. Moba's spirit enters an artificial world created by Mogami. In the new world, a new student, Asajiri Minori, comes to Mobi's class. Minori tells everyone that her father is very rich. Further, Minori realizes that in the class, Mob is an object for ridicule. Since all reminders of his strength have been erased in this world, Mob is beaten every day. Even his brother Rico ignores him. And in the real world, Reigen and Dimples have Minori tied up and are waiting for Mob to deal with the Mogami. Due to Moba's spirit in Minori's body, the enchantment that blocked the doors was gone. Psychics begin to grab the wounded and quickly leave. However, Reigen stays behind as he believes Mob can handle it. But Dimples at this time cynically thinks, should he capture Mob's body or continue to control him from the shadows? And after Dimple decides to help Mob, but he can't get through Mogami's shield. However, Rsusho unexpectedly extends a helping hand, which enhances Dimple's spiritual power, and he passes through the barrier. Meanwhile, Mogami reveals in a flashback why he became an evil spirit. It turns out that his mother was terribly ill. Due to lack of money, Mogami took on absolutely any psychic work. However, when her mother died, she turned into an evil spirit and began to blame Mogami for her death. And when Mogami himself went to another world, he turned into an evil spirit and began to punish those who harmed other people. And through Minori, he wants to punish all self-proclaimed psychics. Further in the new world, Mob is on the street feeding a stray cat. However, Minori and her gang show up and start attacking Mob. Mogami's voice asks Mob to turn on his power, causing Mob to start attacking the gang and Minori. He asks the spoiled Minori to apologize to him. However, he gets hit on the head. His memories begin to change, but Dimples suddenly appears and brings Mob to his senses. Mob remembers Rrsusho, Reigen, and Dimples, as well as Tsubomi-chan and the Body Development Club. In general, Mob remembered everything. Next, Mogami himself appears. Mob says that Mogami helped him see the world from a different angle. Mob realized that due to the support of his friends, he became much stronger. Mob's breakdown scale is 99%. Further, there is a spiritual mutation of all images of people. These spirits begin to attack Mob. Mob hears the voices of the dead, but after hearing the voice of Minori, he understood why he was here. Mob's disruption scale is 100%. Mob starts melting Mogami spirits, and after Mob asks Dimples to fly away as soon as possible, as it is very dangerous here. Mogami attacks Mob, causing even the buildings to start flying. However, Moba's outburst of positive emotions destroys Mogami's spirit. Because of this, all the spirits that Mogami was absorbing are released and begin to attack Mob. But Mob uses his power again and melts the spirits. However, there are too many of them, but Moba's desire to save Minori does not let him give up. The Mob turns into a super psycho Mob, and the Mob's vessel bursts. Because of what Mob wakes up in the real world, Mogami then leaves Minori's body and says that she will watch Mob from the sidelines. However, the spirit is captured by Matsuo and placed in his vessel. Then Minori wakes up and asks to forgive her for everything. Minori realizes that she behaved incorrectly, and already in the hospital, Minori tells her father that the boy Mob saved her. However, Masashi says that there were no boys among the psychics he invited, but he made inquiries and donated 500 million yen to the Psycho Helmet community. Back at the office, Mob asks Reigen why he didn't go to Masashi to get the reward. But Reigen says that a lot of people suffered then, and this cannot be called a success, and that you cannot accept money when you feel that you did not deserve it. Then Mob and two clubs decide to go to a family restaurant and celebrate the birthday of one of the telepaths, and then go to karaoke. Mob says he hasn't had such a good time in a long time. However, Reigen calls him and asks him to urgently come to the rescue. There, Mob exorcises the spirit of the frozen tofu, and after Mob asks Reigen not to call him for nothing, since he has his own personal life. However, Reigen lectures Mobu and says that all the people around him are just bullying him. But Mob says that he understands that what Reigen says is not always true. He is sure that his social circle is real friends. After this conversation, Mob decides not to come to Reigen for some time. In short, Mob has matured a bit. Reigen, meanwhile, is trying to figure out how to work without Mob. He tries to find at least some advantages in this. And about Mob, he thinks that he is incredibly lonely and that he will return soon. And so it goes day after day, until Reigen meets a satisfied Mob, who goes along with Kurata and Mamet. Reigen hides behind the counter. He is shocked that Mob is doing well. Dimples also confirms this. Dimples also said that Mob doesn't have much to worry about Reigen. After that, Reigen goes to a bar. Turns out it's Reigen's birthday today. And the next day, Reigen decided for himself that he had to change. He began to clean up the city as much as possible, to conduct live broadcasts of exorcisms, and he even managed to exorcise the spirit of the killer of players from the popular game Fantastic Hell. Even Mob could not cope with such a task. In general, the popularity of his agency began to grow sharply. He was even interviewed for a magazine and then invited to a TV show. There, Reigen acted as an expert along with Shoto. It turns out that Shoto wanted to get revenge on Reigen all along for the hit when he was captured by Mogami. So he made it so that Reigen was invited to a TV show, and that Reigen was embarrassed on national TV. On this online show, experts were first introduced, and then a possessed boy was brought in. And during the commercial break, Shoto suggested that Reigen perform an exorcism ritual. Reigen thought it was all in the script. He began to throw salt at the boy. Reigen realized that the boy was playing a role. However, even after receptions and 30 minutes, the boy continued to play the role. So the host asked Shoto to exorcise this spirit. However, Shoto says that this boy is not possessed, but just playing a role. The MC confirmed that Shoto was absolutely correct. The host then declares Shoto to be a true psychic. After this situation, Reigen is bombarded with questions, and Shoto adds fuel to the fire, saying that this is how Reigen always works. Shoto continues to make fun of Reigen, causing Reigen to be embarrassed throughout Japan. The next day, Mameta tells Mobu about Reigen's embarrassment on TV. On all channels, they begin to show customers who were allegedly deceived by Reigen. Reigen realized that Shoto set him up. However, in just 3 days, Reigen became a real scammer star. Crowds of journalists began to watch near his house, who suggested that Reigen hold the press conference and answer all the popular questions at once. Mob also learned about this conference. Then the press conference begins, which was broadcast by all television channels. Reigen asks if there is anyone here who can say with 100% guarantee that Reigen has no powers, and while there is no evidence that he is a charlatan, all the clients shown on TV were bogus. After Reigen calmly answers all tricky questions, Rrsushho, Teruka, and other acquaintances are worried about him. And when asked why Reigen became a psychic, we are shown the first meeting of Mob and Reigen, where Mob introduced himself as a psychic, and Reigen thought it was some kind of joke. However, after seeing Mob's power, he really decides to take up exorcism. And in real time, after a long pause, Reigen says that he has noticeably grown, and he means Mob. Everything around starts to shake and objects fly up into the air. Reigen calmly says that he is ending the press conference, and then the lights go out. On the way home, Reigen meets with Mob and asks him a question. Did Mob know that the teacher has no power? Mob replied that he always knew that his teacher Reigen was a genuinely kind person. Further, we are shown the cult of the Psycho Helmet, which even has its own building. However, their leader, Mob, has yet to show up. There are already about 700 members in this cult, but if Mob appeared there, then the number of the cult would increase 10 times. Meanwhile, the Salt School announces an annual marathon. Afterwards, Mizata asks Mob to meet on the rooftop. Mizata tells Mob about the Psychic Helmet cult, and that during Reigen's press conference, Mob accidentally got into the frame of video cameras for a few seconds. And the cult members realized that their leaders were from the Soul School. Then Mizata offers Mobu during the marathon to finally show his strength and become the leader of the cult. However, Mob says that in the marathon, he will simply run using his physical strength. Mob's goal is to get into the top 10 and show Tsubomi-chan how cool he has become and ask her out. He has 10 days to prepare. The Tengu gives Mobu his new shoes, which are too small for the Tengu. At work, Reigen helps Mobi with training, and he is also helped by the Body Development Club. In the meantime, Mob is in training, Rtsusho and Teruka replace him at work. Tsubomi-chan and her friend Miki unexpectedly enter Mobi's office. Rtsusho immediately hides under the table as he doesn't want Tsubomi-chan to think that his brother is connected to this murky place. Girlfriends came for relationship advice. Reigen invites them to fill out a questionnaire, and after reading the questionnaire, Reigen begins to give advice. Tsubomi-chan at that moment saw on the board a photo of Mob along with Reigen. After Tsubomi, Chan tells Reigen about a guy from another school with whom she goes to prep classes and asks Reigen for advice. Reigen replies that in this case, it is best for her to immediately invite him to meet. Rtsusho is shocked, and the girls thank Reigen and leave. Turns out Tsubomi-chan lied about the courses. She was asking about Mob, and Rtsusho got it all wrong. The day of the marathon has arrived. Mob was pushed at the start and injured his knee. However, this did not stop him. Dimples offered to help Mob, but Mob refused. The mob runs with all its might, but a broken leg hinders it a little. Then Reigen appears and tries to cheer Mob up, but Mob loses consciousness. He wakes up already on the bed at school. From the teacher, he learns that Rtsusho took 9th place. Shigeo arrives at Moba's house, and Rtsusho opens the door for him. After going home, Mob discovers smoke coming from the side of his house. He found that his whole house was on fire. The mob goes inside with Dimples. Dimples finds signs of a struggle near the entrance to the house. Mob suggested that someone might have captured his family. He decides to look for clues in the house. Entering one of the rooms, he found several charred bodies. Because of this, Mob's emotions begin to fly off the rails. However, Dimples tries to stop him. He says that most likely they are just dolls and everything is fine with his family. Unexpectedly, Mob discovers in a moment who may have set fire to his house and thanks Dimples for not letting him break loose. After Mob finds the members of the Claw, he tries to get information, but learns nothing. Then Sakurai and Kuyama show up and offer to give Mob a ride. They bring Mob to a meeting where scars are present, Reigen, Mitsuru with the psychics of the Awakening Lab. Dimples tells everyone what happened to Moba's house and family. Reigen called Dimples to talk. He assumed that Dimples had lied about the bodies of the dolls in the house. However, Reigen still decides to calm Mob down and says that most likely it was set on fire in order to kidnap his family. Mob then loses consciousness. Then there is a meeting where the Scars say that they joined the teacher Reigen as they were defeated by school children and they decided to leave the Claw and start a new life. However, the Claw does not forgive this. They were all attacked at once by members of the Claw, but the Scars were able to fight back. However, when the Super 5 of the main headquarters appear, they will not do well, so they need a leader like Reigen. They realize this after seeing Reigen's press conference. We are also informed that Reigen's office has been destroyed. Meanwhile, one of the Talon members arrives at Teruka's house and uses a telekinetic blast. However, Teruka wins and drags him in for questioning at the meeting. With the help of a bucket of water, they learn that the boss has traveled the world in search of powerful psychics and has amassed a whole army of psychics for himself. Next, we are shown the mercenary Joseph, and then they show the boss Suzuki to Ichiro himself. He informs everyone that Talon is ready to declare war on this world. With the power of Hattori Nozomu on all channels live, Toichiro talks about Claw. He reports that their goal is to take over this world. And for starters, they want to destroy the capital. Then we are shown Suzuki Sho and his team, as well as the whole and unharmed Rtsusho. It turns out that Shio then carried 2 tickets for the trip of Mob and Rtsusho's parents to protect them from the Talon's attack. One of the chapters of the Claw tells the plan to take over the city, where about 600 psychics must oppose 600,000 police and military. However, Joseph and several Talon members decide to start a mutiny. It turns out that they were sent to the Claw for money in order to destroy it from the inside. The rebels split up to attack. Joseph finds Toichiro, tells him that he is a mercenary and that his goal is to destroy this organization. But Sorizawa intervenes. Joseph seals it with smoke. But Toichiro says he feels sorry for Joseph since all of his so-called rebels were defeated by his Super 5. And as long as Claw's Super 5 and Toichiro himself exist, Claw is invincible. After Joseph is attacked again by Sorizawa, Joseph simply escapes. Next, we are shown the blind Shamazaki Ryu, one of the Super 5 who came to capture the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister's guards shoot at him, but they cannot hit him. Shimazaki then grabs the Prime Minister and teleports under the bridge, where Teruka, who was able to sense him, is waiting for him. Teruka attacks, but Shimazaki knocks him out. Then Toichiro and his Super 5 came to the boss's hometown to destroy that city. The military appears, attacked by artificial psychics. The boss orders Hattori to deal with all enemy vehicles. Minagishi and Shibata went to expand their territory, while Shimazaki and Serizawa stayed behind to defend this base. Meanwhile, Reigen's new team asks their leader about what they will do. However, Reigen initially says that they will not participate in this and let the police figure it out. But after getting a call from the insurance agency about his burnt-down office, he changed his mind and decided to command Reigen's psycho team. At this time, Rsusho and his team destroy several dozen artificial psychics. The Minagishi then appears, but Atsuki, Fukuda, and Agashio tell the Minagishi to be left on them. They ask their leader Sho to go ahead with Rsusho. The trio start fighting the Minagishi, but the Minagishi easily defeats all three. Meanwhile, Reigen and a team of psychos begin to implement their plan. The first stage is to divert the attention of artificial psychics and buy time with the help of flying cars. However, Ishikara Scar and a bunch of Talon members burst into their room. But Takeuchi appears and they all defeat the Talon members together. After that, Teruka and the team decide to head towards the boss's building. Meanwhile, the Scars of Kuyama, Sakurai, and Muraki walk through the sewers to Talon's headquarters. However, Shimazaki appears on their way and knocks everyone out. Further, a bunch of artificial psychics burst into the shelter to Raiden and Mob, who attack themselves with an aerosol confiscated by Reigen from Season 1. After that, Shibata Hulk appears, one of the Super 5. Initially, he also faints from the aerosol, but after a couple of seconds, he gets up. Reigen sprays him in the face again. However, Shibata turned red and attacked the lying Mob. Dimples came to the rescue, who moved into MOBA and tried to counterattack Shibata. However, nothing happened. After Dimple tries to run away from this Red Hulk, but the Hulk runs after him. Dimples tries to hide in a crowd of people, where Tsubomi-chan is discovered. He is trying to protect her. However, Hulk knocks back Mob's body with one blow, causing even Dimples to fly out of his body. Mob is caught by members of Body Evolution who try to protect him from the Hulk, but he scatters everyone. The Hulk wants to destroy Mob, but Musashi comes to his defense. Musashi uses his muscles to 100% and begins to fight this Hulk on an equal footing, and then throws the Hulk on the roof of the building. It turns out that Dimples did all this by possessing Musashi. After Mob comes to his senses and knocks out the Hulk, Mob asks Dimples about what is happening now. Next, Minagishi appears and starts fighting Mob. Mobu comes to the aid of Matsuo's Scar. However, Scar is dropped to the ground, which breaks his vessel where Mogami's spirit is kept. The spirit comes out and starts attacking everyone. The spirit grabs the Minagishi and crushes him, but Mob asks the spirit not to destroy the Minagishi. Mogami says that if Mob becomes violent towards humans, then Mob will become invincible. After Mogami disappears. Meanwhile, Sho and Rsusho have already reached the building where the boss is. However, Shimazaki appears. Rsusho says that now the only one who can defeat the boss is his son Sho, so he takes on Shimazaki. But Shimazaki is too strong. He attacks Rsusho, but the Scars from the 7th Division and Teruka appear in time, and they all start attacking Shimazaki together. Shimazaki uses teleportation to dodge all attacks, but Teruka was able to read his actions. And then the Scars manage to hit him. After Shimazaki concentrates and knocks out everyone at once, Shimazaki sensed Mob, but Reigen appeared and dropped Shimazaki to the ground with a flurry of punches. After that, he decides to give up, since the plan to take over this world is just a crazy idea of his boss. Mob then threateningly scares Shimazaki, causing him to cowardly run away. After Mob says that he will fight the boss alone, and let the rest help the wounded. Meanwhile, Sho goes up to his father, but Hattori gets in his way. Sho throws it over his shoulder and walks on. Sho meets his father, after which he attacks him with the strongest attacks. However, the father easily repels all attacks. Then Sho attacks with his strongest technique, a light-charged bomb, the energy for which he saved up for 3 months. However, Sarizawa appears and parries the blow. Further, the boss tells about the fact that he traveled the world in search of the psychic is stronger than himself, but in the whole world he is the strongest. After Toichiro decides to show his son his small portion of the power accumulated over 20 years. Next, the mob on the stairs meets Sarizawa and the freed Prime Minister descending. Sarizawa talks about the fact that the boss once saved him from the hell called his life, and after that he began to work at the top of the claw. However, even Mob realizes that Sarizawa is just being used. After Mob cuts off his strength, however, he is thrown back by Sarizawa. Mob realized that Sarizawa's main strength was his umbrella. Sarizawa then attacks Mob, and then collects a large amount of energy for a second strike. Mob's disruption scale is 100%. Mob begins to drain energy from Sarizawa, but then returns it, and at the same time transmits Mob's emotions. After Sarizawa talks about how he left the top floor as the boss began to mock his son. Next, we are shown the defeated Sho, and the boss talks about his incubator of artificial psychics. He also reveals that he is the only one who can share his power as well as take it away. After that, he begins to take power from the fallen psychics. Toichiro is about to attack Shigeo, but Mob appears and says that he doesn't get mad at Shigeo anymore for his house being burned down. Mob then transfers some of his power to Sho so that he can get back on his feet and leave. Toichiro is shocked that Mob can transfer his power. Next, Toichiro attacks Moba and Sho. Mob tries to explain that all strength lies in friendship, but Toichiro strongly disagrees with this. He believes that strength lies in solitude. After Toichiro attacks Moba again, Sho tries to stop his father, but the boss pushes his son away. Toichiro grabs Mob's head, but Reigen appears with a weapon and asks Toichiro to let Mob go. Reigen shoots at Toichiro, who easily deflects the shot. Afterwards, Reigen tries to distract Toichiro with a conversation and get within striking distance. However, the boss is behind him and then attacks Reigen with a powerful explosion. Reigen is rescued by Sarizawa, but he loses his umbrella. Then Toichiro re-attacks Sarizawa and Reigen. However, Mob comes to their defense. Mob's disruption scale is 100%. After flying, Reigen, Sarizawa, and Sho are caught by Minigishi, who realized that the boss was left alone and decided to side with Mob. Next, Toichiro starts shooting at the people on the ground. The mob grabs Toichiro and throws him into the tower. However, the boss uses 10% of his power in response and slams Mob into the ground. Mob then raises the tower and attacks Toichiro. However, he uses 20% of his strength and throws Mob back, and then completely throws Mob on the ground. Then Toichiro uses 50% of his power. The mob creates a giant ball where he puts Toichiro. However, he gets out of the ball and again throws Mob on the ground. And then Toichiro tells Mob to use all his power. Toichiro begins to connect 100% of his power, because of which his body begins to transform, and he turns into a monster with a burning head. Mob tries to stop Toichiro. However, Toichiro gathered too much energy, which should cause a huge explosion of energy. Mob asks his friends to run away immediately, and Mob himself returns to Toichiro and tells him that he will try to absorb the explosion and save Toichiro. The mob begins to absorb Toichiro's energy, but a massive explosion occurs. After Reigen, Ritsu, and Terugu find the surviving mob. However, it turns out that the mob is absolutely intact. The only thing that was damaged was his school uniform, and the wounds of everyone around the explosion disappeared without a trace. After that, Mob collapses from impotence, but Ritsu catches him, and then Teruka picks him up and says that he will carry Mob. Mob goes on to say that they now have nowhere to go since their home is no longer there, but Shoto promised that in 3 days Moba and Ritsu's house would be restored. Reigen invited them to stay with him for a while. Next, they decide to go to the school's body development club room and change Mob into a tracksuit. However, they are scared off by Musashi, who has come for the dumbbells. They tell Musashi about what happened to them. Musashi calls his guys, and they promise to find housing for the guys, give food, and find a place to sleep. Further, the psychics of the Awakening Lab ask Mitsuri-san to stop the research on psychics, as someone will definitely appear who will start using his research for bad purposes. After that, we are shown Sakurai and Kuyamo walking already without scars, who are discussing what to do next. Next, we are shown how Joseph takes the captured Toichiro. Toichiro says that he would gladly see his ex-wife, Shoto's mother, again. Shoto reassures him and says that he communicates with his mother every day and that she almost always asks how her crazy husband is doing. Next, Reigen, Mob, and Dimples move into a new office. After we are shown a giant grown broccoli. It turns out that it grew from broccoli seeds that Mob had in his pocket, and when the energy was released, the seeds absorbed almost all the energy of the explosion. Reigen offers to pretend that these are not their seeds. After that, Serizawa enters the office. It turns out that Reigen invited him to work. Reigen asks Mob to brief Serizawa on his new job as a psychic. If you want to continue, then write about it in the comments. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like and press the bell so as not to miss new videos. AniMap was with you. Bye everyone!